Right, again, today is the 10th of December, so we meet today, we meet next Tuesday, we meet next Thursday. In an ideal world, we'll do as much as we can today to get through the rest of this particular homework. But we're going to get to a certain point, and I don't know where it is in here, where they'll say, now we're going to go in and we're going to add pictures and some other stuff that I'm going to walk you through it and I'm going to tape it, but like I did in an earlier lecture, I'm not going to sit there and talk and tape and talk and tape. I'm going to talk about it first, all right, in one tape, and then I'm going to go in and do it without me talking just so you can see the different stuff that I'm doing. That might make it easier, that may make it harder for you to understand. That's not my goal one way or the other, all right? But my goal is to get through all this stuff, but when it gets to the point where you're adding images and stuff in here, everybody's going to do it at a different speed. You know, Andrew might get it right away, and boom, 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 boom. He's got all of his stuff is populated. Ben might have a problem with it, and it just doesn't work very well because then we have to stop for one person, and then another person is ahead, etc. And that just doesn't work very well. All right, so we're going to get through as much of this as we can today. So we left off last time. We're around page 90 or so. I guess we're a little further than that. I'm looking on the handout that I have on my copy, and I've got that we're on around page 94. So I'm still on 92, but I do want to make sure you realize, again, as the author says, if you want to go back, you can change all of your variables and you can get rid of the colon int in front of that if you want to. You don't have to. I would say if your program's working, I wouldn't change it. All right? But the author says you can do it either way. Okay. In the show alert function, there's stuff in here that you should now be able to understand, such as, what's the difference? The difference is what that value was, the random number, what that is as opposed to what you put in. So again, if the random number was 67 and you got close but you weren't quite there and you had a 63, okay, then it's going to be what? It's going to end up being 67 minus 63 or 4. So 100 minus 4 will mean that the points you got for that round were 96. That should make sense to everyone. All right, by now, all that stuff should make sense. Then the author came in and said, well, you know what? We ought to really be a little bit nicer in that if the person is right on and gets a perfect type of score, etc., we'll give them 100 or a bonus of 100 points. If they're within 1, we'll give them a bonus of 50 points. All right, so hopefully you added that stuff. I don't even know where it is on here, what page. It's not that important. But the point is, that was the stuff that we were supposed to add into here. We were supposed to check. And it was the stuff you see on your screen here. So we added this stuff last time. If the difference was 0, we said perfect. But then the author said also give them a 100-point bonus. If it's less than 5, which means what? It's 4, 3, 2, or 1 away. So you first check. First you say you almost had it, but if you're only 1 away, we give you a bonus of 50. All right? If you're less than 10, so that means you're 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you're going to say pretty good. And if you're 10 or more, you're going to say not even close. So that should be putting the title up there. All right? And I still haven't changed that thing, I guess. And it should say you scored X number of points. Okay? Because a couple people said last time, when you looked at mine, I removed everything else that the message has in it. If you want to put all that stuff in it, you can. All right? You might want to do that. You might want to say the target goal was 67. You reached, your guess was a 63. You had a difference of 4. Therefore, you scored 96 points in this round. If that makes it easier for you to understand, no problem. All right, and think about who you might want to do that for. You know, most people say, well, yeah, that'd be the kind of thing you do for a kid. No, most kids can play games and they don't read stuff anyway. You know, with them, typically the brighter it is, the more stuff that blows up, etc. That's what they're looking for. typically, especially if you're going to have older people who are going to use the app, they will take the time to read the stuff that's in there, where most younger people will not. All right? So once we've got all that stuff in, again, I got to change mine. That should just be titled. Mine's still saying the word title, but that should be titled without the quotes, and that should be putting in either perfect, or you almost had it, or pretty good, or not even close. So that should be the title of the alert, but my alert, the whole message should just say you scored and the number of points that you have. All right? That's pretty much where we left off last time. So I want to get rid of, by the title here, I want to get rid of those double quotes. And I want to save. All right, hopefully now mine's up to date. And hopefully now yours is as well. All right, and we went through this last time, but it was right near the end of the period. That's why you may or may not have noticed, typically when I start a new period, I go back and try to review the stuff at the end, because typically at the end, you know, we're trying to go through this stuff kind of quickly. It's near the end of class. All right, people are already, well, I want to go out and have a cigarette. I want to go out and go to the bathroom. I want to go out and do whatever. All right, so that's where we're kind of starting up the next time. So the author had said here on page 92, they talked about that alert and that alert going away. And he mentions in here, this whole thing is a timing thing. All right, and he talked about this near the bottom here of page 92. I don't want to read to you. But a lot of times it can be confusing because the order in which things transpire in an app. And the point of this whole thing is what the author mentions in here is some of the stuff that's going to happen in an app will happen asynchronously, which means, all right, and this is always my joke, and you may laugh, you may not laugh, but if I'm talking with John, typically we have a synchronous conversation, all right? I'll start talking, he listens. When I stop talking, he starts talking, and I stop talking. All right, that's typically between individuals, you have a synchronous conversation, except with your mate. Typically with your mate, you have an asynchronous conversation. You start talking, and they want to jump in and tell you that you're wrong. So they start talking. All right, and then you may be listening, and then you think they're wrong, and you start talking. And the reason I'm telling you that is a lot of the times when you're working with apps, things are happening asynchronously because the system isn't waiting for visual or other types of cues to do things. It's just working its way through. So that's what the author talked about in here. So to try to slow it up a little bit, they had you come back in and make some changes. So they say right now, this action looks like this. All right? The blue line that you see there on page 93. And the handler is now set to nil. And it says that third parameter, handler, tells the alert what should happen when the button is pressed. This is the alert dismissed event that you've been looking for. So this is where you would add code. Just so you know. And I don't know because I didn't teach you the jQuery stuff. The class that you're taking next semester, the 152-164, the design and implementation projects class, we're going to spend more time on jQuery in there than anything else. Because if what you were taught is what people have told me you've been taught, you weren't taught a lot. All right? And I'm not trying to be mean, I'm trying to be honest with you. So we're going to spend a lot of time on that. The reason I'm telling you that now, though, is in jQuery, a lot of times you've got a routine. And then at the end of the routine, you can put in as a parameter, you can put in a call to a function. Where maybe you want that call to the function to say, I'm done, or whatever, you know, and that's called a callback function. Basically, handler here is used like a callback function. To say when stuff is completed, what do you want to do? Well, currently, not much. But they want you to come in and change it. All right? So the author says near the bottom of the page here, it says change the bottom bit of the show alert so it looks like this. Now, it's important to realize that if you haven't made those changes, you should, but a couple things. First of all, if you make those changes, you look up on the screen here. Currently at the very bottom, right up above that curly brace, we've got a call to start new round followed by a call to update labels. That's what it looks like now. If you change it to this, get rid of those calls because otherwise you're calling them twice. So you don't want to do that. All right? But now what you're saying is, okay, when this has all been handled, then after it's done, then I want to do this stuff. So you're trying to slow down the way that it's working. That's all. All right? You know, and it's a good news, bad news type of situation. What I've tried to do in these 5 or 6 or 8 or whatever number of weeks it is in this class, in the Android class, is to introduce you to it and have you write a couple apps. Now this one was a lot more involved than the other stuff that we've been doing, but you had the stuff right in front of you. I thought it would make sense to kind of do it this way. One thing we have not looked at a lot is there's a lot of online documentation, both here and in the Android world. We're going to go back and look at some of that stuff next semester. All right. And the reason I'm telling you that is like, okay, fine, Jeff, I never even heard of this before. I have no idea what this stuff means. Well, then you can go and kind of look at it online. All right. The other thing, though, you'll notice in here, too, is a lot of times you'll put in a call to a routine like this. So you'll say, start new round and update labels. And you'll get an error message that the system basically, for lack of better words, is confused. And it's like, why would it be confused? Everything I'm doing in there is correct. No, the system isn't recognizing start new round and update labels in the current context in which you're using it. All right? So that's why you have to put the word self with a dot in front of it. Just so contextually it knows that you're talking about calling that within here, within that context. All right? So if you say, well, do I need it? Try typing it in without it. All right? I mean, that's the best way to find out. And a lot of times I've done this. I wanted to call the routine that I've written. It's like, it's not recognizing it. So I tried putting a self dot in front of it, and then it recognizes it. It's like the word this that we've used in Java. It's pretty much used the same way. All right. So hopefully you've made that change. And I'm going to look to see if hopefully I've made that change. And as you can see, I have it in here as well, right in here. And then I've got the alert, the present view, and I removed the other calls to that. So hopefully mine is up to date till right there. So the author mentions, he says 2 things have happened here. I'm going to let you read that. If we keep going over too much of the text here, you know, we've got 60 pages of this, we just won't finish. I'd like to finish this by Tuesday. And I'd like you to come in on Thursday, all right? And why would I like you to come in on Thursday? Because it's your last day to get everything done. Be here, use the max. Am I right in assuming you're going to be here a week from Friday? The 18th, I think that is, something like that? Okay, so John will be here. And I do have to ask, it's only fair, I have to ask Tammy if she can get another key and give Mike a key. That way, you know, if you leave after 1 o'clock, you know, and somebody wants to come in here and use a Mac, they can go up and ask Tammy now, but if she's not around, and especially, you know, gee, hard to believe that maybe the Friday before Christmas, she might not be here. You know, and she's the only one who's got access to those keys. And not to be a jerk, but I ain't coming in. So, all right.
Well, neither am I.
All right, there you go. Fair enough. Just if they call you and ask you to come in, just tell them I will. I'm going to leave right now, but I'm in North Carolina. All right, so I'll be there when I can be there. All right, and I'm walking. All right, so here's more about the word self on page 94 if you want that. All right. Next, they start talking about starting over on the bottom of page 94. And again, I don't know if we got this far last time or not, but the author says what we're talking about is that start over button. That button is supposed to reset the score and put the player back into the first round. All right. It says one way you might want to use that is if you decide you want to add to the game so you can have 2 people play against one another. All right. And, you know, I know some of you in here are into games. That's cool. I have no problem with that. But you know a heck of a lot more about it than I do. I can tell you I've played very few games. Okay? I just don't have the time to do it. It's not that I don't want to or anything. You know, my wife was into Flappy Birds and all that stuff, so she had me try it. I've done some road race games. I've done some wrestling games and boxing games and MMA games, but not a whole lot. My daughter's going out with a guy who's graduating with his 4-year degree in May, And it sounds like when he's not with her, he's at home playing games. All right. According to her, he's not at home studying. He's not at home doing homework. But if she needs to find him, she knows where to go because he's got a game room in his house. All right. So the author says, try to implement this start over button on your own. And he says, how did you do? If you got stuck, let's take a look at what you'd have to do. So let's pick it up right here. And if somebody would let me know, please. It looks like right now it's 8:41. Travis, if you let me know when it's about 8:55, we'll take a break then. All right. So the author says, add a new method that's called Start New Game. Hopefully you understand this by now. The way that this language is set up, it doesn't care where you add new methods. So you can add it at the very bottom of your screen. You can add it at the top of your screen. It's really and truly not going to matter very much. But what most people end up doing is they end up adding it as they put more and more code in here. They end up adding it at the bottom of the screen. All right. So this was func. I think it's start new game. All right. Again, I'll put some blank lines in here just so you can see that. So that's what I just added right there. Func, start new game. Where did I get that? From the bottom of the page on page 94. Then going up to page 95, we want to set score equal to 0, set round equal to 0, and call start new round. So I'm going to do that. So set score equal to 0. All right. Set round equal to 0 and start new game. No, I'm not maybe calling it self. Start new round. All right. And you'll notice if I go up to the top, and I keep harping on a lot of the same stuff, but there's a reason for it. There really and truly is. And that is if I go up to here, oh, where are you? It says down here func. There's no IB outlet. All right, so right now it's not connected to anything. It's got to be called by something. All right? So the author explains, says this method resets the score of the round number and it starts a new round. All right, it says notice that you're setting the round to 0, not to 1, because when we call start new round, the first thing that does is it adds 1 to the rounds. So if you don't, if you do set it to 1, you're always going to be off 1 by 1 in your rounds. All right, if you don't get that, that's what they're explaining down here. Okay. All right, and the author says you also need an action method to handle taps on the start over button. Okay, so it says to add this. Well, you know now there's 2 ways that you can do this. All right, I'm going to show you something right now you may or may not agree with. And either way, it's fine. The way that I try, I'm not saying the way I do, the way I try to set my code up. I just want to show you this. All right? You don't have to do it this way. What I'm showing you does not make your program run any better. But what I try to do is I don't have any lets in here for constants, but if I do, if I'm going to have instance constants that are going to be used throughout the program, I put them at the top. That's the way I do it. Then I put my regular program variables underneath it. Then I put my IB outlet program variables underneath it. Then under view did load and under did receive memory warning, under those 2, then I start to put my IB action funcs. Again, that's the way I do it. All right? And I don't put them in alphabetic order. I put them in the order in which I write them. Then after those IB action funcs, I put the other funcs. That's the way I set stuff up. That doesn't make your program run any better, but I know naturally where stuff is going to go. So I know if there's a problem with one of my IB action routines, I know the area in the code for which I should go, type of thing. I mean, some people are really, really anal about this. They get done, and I've seen this before, believe it or not. They put their variables in alphabetic order, they put their constants in alphabetic order, they put their functions in alphabetic order, etc. If you want to go to that extreme, the advantage of doing that is it makes it much easier because the stuff's in order. It's like you did an order by type of thing. The disadvantage is it takes a lot more time. All right. Plus, every time you add something new, you got to make sure you shoehorn it in the right place. But that's up to you if you want to do that. What's that?
I said then you're also parsing that code.
Well, I'd say you're more anal retentive. You know, where it's like everything that's like that. You know, and as time has gone on, you know, when you hear about people being OCD and a lot of other stuff, I'm fairly certain I've got one of those things, because I can get that way where I'm really particular about things. All right, but it's funny because as I've gone on, I used to always have to make sure that I had my curlies on a line by themselves. I didn't feel right unless I did that. But I'm to the point here. I put in this first one, it puts in the second one, and not to sound like a jerk or whatever, I don't give a damn where the hell it is. I mean, up to that point. And the system puts them in like that, fine. I don't really care. So I'm going to add that new IB outlet. So I'm going to add, go ahead and add it in. Again, there's different ways that I can do this. Let's do it the other way that they talk about doing, which means I'm going to come in here. All right. And this is something, the start over, that we're going to want to go in and we're going to want to hook up to that button, I believe. All right. Let's double check. So it says you need this. It doesn't matter where you place it, but below the other methods is a nice place for it. When the start over button is pressed, the start over method first calls, start new game, etc., etc., etc. All right. So again, I can come in here now if I want to, and I can manually type in that stuff, and I'm going to put it right here. So I can manually type it in. All right. Or, as you've already seen, I can highlight the start over button by clicking it. I can hold down on the control, hold down on the touchpad, and drag over to here. All right. And it comes up that way. So whichever way is easier for you to do this, it doesn't really matter. All right. So now I got to remember what they said to call it. So it says here, this is going to be our IB action func start over. All right. All right, so we had start new game, and now we're going to want to put in start over. All right, so I like doing it this way. Again, you may or may not. So again, I highlight it, hold down on control, hold down on the touchpad, and it didn't take it because I didn't do it in the right order. So click off, click on, control. Oh, it's already up there, sorry. So start over. I want it to be an outlet, I want it to be a UI button, and I want it to be weak. I will say one more thing about this. Please, if you don't look at this, I mentioned this earlier, but now, believe it or not, you're a little bit more sophisticated Swift users than you were. Sometimes when you put these things in there, the only thing that'll be in there like that is the control itself. All right? Sometimes it won't have anything specified. Now, if that's the case, you should always click the down arrow, and whatever it is you're working with, be it a text view or whatever, that's what you should choose. Because otherwise you're saying anything can call it. This means this is only going to be callable from a button. And that's good because we're linking it up with that button. That'd be what we want to have happen. All right. So I've got that in there. As far as I can tell, I should be able to connect now. And there it is. So what did I do? I didn't do it right. I set up an outlet variable. I didn't want to set up an outlet variable. I wanted to set up a function. All right. While I get my bearings, because it'll take a minute, let's take our break now. All right, we'll come back at 5 after.
Save.